Okay.
It's 7 p.m. and I call to order this meeting of the Middlebury Development Review Board for April 8, 2019. First thing, I'll go over the business agenda for tonight. The first item is an application request by Community Barn Real Estate for conditional use approval for the mixed commercial use of historic stone mill building located at 3 Mill Street. The stone mill building is located in the Central Business District on parcel 24081. The second business item tonight is an application request by Ronald Holmes appealing the zoning administrator's zoning opinion letter dated February 15th, 2019. This appeal specifically addresses condition 4 of a DRB decision dated October 29th, 1999 in regards to MT Associate Village Depot, 16 Court Street, parcel 250014. Next item will be the approval of the minutes of 3/11. Oh, thank you. Are there any communications from the public on any subject matter not on the agenda tonight? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the DRB minutes for 3/11/2019?
I'll move the approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Changes? Questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the first business item. Yes.
I think we should recognize that when we got here, there was some additional information on the table here, reference to.
I will do that with item number 2.
Okay.
Does some of it? Yes, I will.
Is that you?
Some of it, it's both.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. First is application request by Community Barn Real Estate for conditional use approval for mixed commercial use of the historic stone mill building located at 3 Mill Street. The stone mill building is located in the Central Business District on parcel 24081. Okay, if you'd like to come forward. The following is the DRB oath for applicants, interested persons, and those who wish to participate in this hearing. If you are interested in participating in this hearing, please take the oath now. If you do not take the oath, you will not be able to participate. Do you affirm that the evidence and information you are giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief? Please raise your hand. Thank you. At this time, I would ask the members of the board if any member has a conflict of interest regarding this application. Also, at this time, does any member wish to disclose any ex parte conversations concerning this case? Okay. We were handed some new information on this case just tonight, and that is in regard to the parking lot B. So we have that information now.
Yeah.
Okay, if you'd like to introduce yourselves and give us an idea of what this project is about.
Great. Good evening. My name is Mary Cullinan. I'm a co-partner with Stacy Rainey of Community Barn Real Estate. And we also own the business on 44 Main Street, Community Barn Ventures. 2 years ago, Stacy and I made a decision that we wanted to change our career path get off the corporate train a little bit and made a decision to contribute from a work perspective for the first time where we actually live. We've had careers that have taken us to many different places. We've been incredibly fortunate, but we've never had the opportunity to contribute directly to the community that we lived in. Stacy has been a resident here in Vermont for over 6 years, and I recently moved in about 3 years ago. So for the past 2 years, we've been running Community Barn Ventures, which focuses on working with small businesses in the area that are trying to go from point A to point B. And they're trying as a small business to make it work here, and sometimes there are challenges or opportunities that they need help in figuring out. And so we have truly been honored over the past 2 years to be supporting their work. But what we always really wanted to do is we wanted to find a way to demonstrate more broadly how small towns, and as demonstrated here in Vermont, can be challenged by the changing dynamics that we see in retail, that we see in work, that we see in lodging, and how those changing dynamics impact the small towns that we live in the way that we can gather as a community. And so to do that, we had been looking for the past year and a half or so to find a building that we could purchase and help to reimagine what a daily destination or gathering place for Middlebury and the surrounding community could be. And finally, we had the opportunity to purchase a stone mill. Stacy and I both had an appreciation for that building just from an architectural perspective. And then when we had the opportunity to actually buy it, I knew this was our chance to bring that work to fruition. And so we purchased the building from the college, and then we established an opportunity for other community members to help with the investment as well. And now we are ready to develop that building into what we're referring to as the stone mill, a place where you'll be able to eat, where you'll be able to work, where you'll be able to shop, and where you'll be able to stay, and where we as a community can come and easily gather and celebrate the amazing place that we live. You could not find a more iconic location right there on Otter Creek, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that building back to community use and ensure that it reflects what it has done for decades and be a place where commerce takes place, where people gather, and where we can enjoy where we live and who we live here with. And so with that, I'll turn it over to my business partner, Stacy, who will talk a little bit about the layout and the proposed businesses within that building.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. So on that first floor where the Storm Cafe had been, we're in conversations with a restaurant right now to take over that space and be a tenant to Community Barn Real Estate. We think it's important to bring another restaurant back online here in Middlebury, and look forward to confirming that in the very near term. The floor above that is going to be a public market, so there'll be a coffee shop in there, and then a handful of other permanent vendors that may come down from Burlington, where they have a large retail presence and have a smaller setup in the public market space here, bringing to town things that you can't get perhaps right now in town, that expand the offerings that we have available to us to purchase on a daily basis. The coffee shop will also have seating in there, so people can come in, connect with neighbors, meet a colleague, et cetera. And so that will be another gathering space in the community. The floor above that is going to be shared co-working space. So there'll be 3 private offices there that people will rent on an annual basis. And then about half of that floor will be available for general membership. So people to just come in, take whatever seating is available and appropriate for their work that day. We'll be thoughtful about the programming that goes in there. So for a lot of the people who are telecommuters, remote workers, entrepreneurs who work out of their home right now, this is a way to establish more of a network, not be isolated, and build that network of colleagues in an intentional way. And then the top floor and a half will be 5 short-term lodging units. So each room will have its own bedroom, bathroom, and then there'll be a shared living room with a small kitchenette area. And so we were very intentional about the interplay between each of those. So folks that stay upstairs might come down, grab a cup of coffee, they might eat in the restaurant, people that are working in the shared co-working space could have a colleague coming into town who might need to stay upstairs. So we believe that we're creating a little bit of a microeconomy there with multiple attractants to bring people down to that building and really broaden its use and supply another place for folks to gather in town.
So we'd like to introduce the team that we've gathered to help bring this to fruition. It's a great local team. Our architects are John McLeod and Steve Curdell, who will be speaking with you. Our builder is Silver Maple Construction. Sean Flynn is here tonight as well, and John Tenney as well. And also Brent Rakowski is here from Otter Creek Engineering. So with that, we will turn it over to them, unless you all have any questions that you have for us.
Any questions at this point? No.
Great, thank you very much.
Hey, I'll go next. I'm John McLeod, partner with McLeod Curdell Architects right across the street. We're the architect for the project, as Mary and Stacy mentioned. I'd like to also add that Greg Sellers of Sellers Tribal Structural Engineering is the structural engineer on the team, and he lives here in town in Buttoff Acres. So I'd like to talk a bit just about how the site is envisioned to work and what the building is going to be like architecturally speaking as a iconic presence in this community. This is what's called the Lowell Survey from 1976. North is up in this drawing, Otter Creek is here.
Raise the pointer so you can be.
Actually, this thing,
It's that camera there, so.
that one. Yep. Okay. So Otter Creek, the old stone mill building is right here. This is Mill Street coming down from Main Street. This is known as Parcel B. And this little guy is that little pump station that's down there by the parking. And Brent will talk a little bit more about parking and vehicular circulation. And the Silver Maple guys can talk about staging and construction activities if you'd like to hear about that. But I'm going to focus on site circulation first. These are two different building levels in their existing site surroundings. So the building at the lowest level, which is the restaurant level, has at-grade access on the west side. And then on the second floor, there's at-grade access on the east side and the south side. So let's start down here at the bottom. The parking is roughly in here, including handicap parking right there. This is the sidewalk coming down. We've now rotated 90 degrees from the Lowell survey so that North is to the right and Otter Creek is to the right, Mill Street's to the left. So hopefully everyone's oriented. We want to make sure that the floor levels of the building are ADA accessible to everyone in the community. So in order to do that, the first part of that strategy is to introduce a new ADA compliant ramp. The one that's there now doesn't, unfortunately, meet the slopes and requirements for ADA access. So we have to make it a little bit longer, and we're going to do that by stretching out this arc. In fact, we need to tuck right up against the property line in order to do that, but it's basically a sidewalk coming down. And as that descends, it lands at this lowest level and comes in where you used to always enter the Storm Cafe and into the restaurant level. And this will be fit out by the eventual restaurant tenant. So it's pretty much an open space right now. There will be an exterior site light over this entrance, as there will be at every at-grade entrance. And that light fixture is indicated here with all of the specifications that were included. It's a full cutoff down light that should comply with the town requirements for lighting. At the bottom of the ramp, you'll come in under a new year-round permanent canopy, roof canopy structure that will provide protection at the entry, as well as provide a little bit of covered seating for the restaurant. Beyond that, a stone dust outdoor seating area will replace the deck that was there with the Storm Cafe. And also that seasonal kind of tent canopy thing that was part of the storm is going to be replaced by this new permanent canopy. The outdoor seating area will curve around and more closely follow the curvature of the riverbank, and should be a wonderful place to sit and enjoy food and drink. So moving up to the second level, we'll have a new fully ADA compliant entrance here on the east side. This is the existing door that's there now, or door opening. It'll get a new door in the opening. And you'll be able to come through here, fully accessible, and there's a new elevator here, ADA compliant, a new ADA bathroom, little janitor closet, and this is the floor with the market. So the vendor stalls will be located here, along with the sales station and the cafe that Mary and Stacy talked about. This deck on this side is proposed to be rebuilt to replace the deck that was there before, which stuck out a little bit farther. This is going to be a cleaner footprint, but it's going to extend all the way over to the sidewalk so that people can enter the deck either by coming down the path and onto the deck in a smooth transition, or down some steps here in this corner, because at this end it's actually dug a little bit into the hillside. Conversely, at this end, where the land is falling away to the creek, there will be guard railings to make sure folks don't fall off the deck. Around on the south side, where there is currently an entrance, there will continue to be an entrance with some new flagstone pavers along the sidewalk. There will be lights over both of these doors. And then these stair towers, which I believe were built in 1978, will continue to serve as egress stair towers. And I'll talk about the architecture of those in just a minute, but they too will have light fixtures above the doors for safe ingress and egress. There is currently an evergreen tree here that's on town property, and that will remain. There's a smaller evergreen on this side that's probably going to have to come out just due to the work that's happening around here, but this whole area will be planted with nice plantings. Okay, this is really kind of a schematic computer model, but this gives you a bird's eye view. Just to review the components we just talked about, the creek is down here, Mill Street is now over here. Okay, so that's the deck, the new deck on the east side, the north stair tower, the west stair tower, the new ADA ramp wrapping around, coming in the new permanent roof canopy to the entrance, and then the outdoor seating here. Okay, everybody oriented? Okay, these are two photo rendered views of what we're proposing the building will be like as viewed from Mill Street down at the bottom by the parking and coming across the pedestrian bridge. Architecturally speaking, the strategy here is to really reveal and celebrate and bring out the original historic stone mill and let that read through more than it does now. And so part of the way we're doing that is that we are going to treat the newer additions in a way that acknowledges that they were later add-ons and not part of the original architecture. And so in the case of the north stair tower, we're going to take off the tired, kind of worn out, clapboard siding boards that are on there now, and we're proposing to replace that with a more transparent or translucent material, which is like this. It's called Polygal. It's a polycarbonate material, and it's pretty clear, not completely, but it lets some light filter through. And then we'll also have a few clear windows at key locations that give you special views out from the landings of the stair. Now, everything else about this stair tower we're proposing to keep as is. The foundation will stay the same, the framing, the roof, and the stair assembly itself. It's just the skin that we'd like to replace. On the west stair tower, it's a little bit different story. We need to rebuild the upper part of the stair tower to get a code-compliant stair to work in the tower that will also work with the floor plans that we're proposing at each level. So here we're going to rebuild, reframe the tower on its existing foundation, and then use similar materials for the new siding, except that on the short ends, we're proposing to use a stained wood board like this that would just give a little bit more visual privacy on these two short ends to Jane Steele over here and to the folks in the building occupying their windows pretty close by to the tower there. So both of these stair towers serve levels 2, 3, and 4, and they empty out at the second level. And both of them will have a low level of illumination for safety, for egress, and also to give the building some life and to make it feel like it's in use and it's alive and it's being used. It's an active part of the community. Finally, the new guardrails on the deck here and the new canopy down at the lower level, we're proposing to make out of a kind of a matte galvanized steel material that will pick up on the gray tones and kind of muted color of the historic stone. And so the end result is, this is the before view, the now view, and then that's the after. Similarly, the before view from Mill Street. And here's the after. So I think I'll hand it over to Brent to talk a bit more about parking and civil issues. unless you
Any
have-
questions from the board at this time?
Where's the elevator going?
The elevator serves levels 2, 3, and 4, and it is inside, right there. So you won't see it. It doesn't break through the roof or the exterior envelope anyway.
So the box on L1 is the pit for it. It's the mechanical room
Yeah,
for
that's
it.
right. That's the
Okay.
pit. Yeah, and that's the machine room for it.
I had another question. Is there a signage program? Is there going to be a signage or brand or identity stuff on the outside?
There will be signage, and we've been talking with the planning and zoning staff, and we plan to address signage with them at the staff level. There's a lot to work through with the different businesses, but it'll certainly comply with the town regs.
I have a question.
Ann?
Could you speak a little to the translucent siding? It looks from your after diagram that it will be attached vertically, so that the stripes down it will be vertical. Is that right?
Well, to say the truth, that is not yet to be fully determined. I think what you might be seeing here is the framing that you can see
Okay.
through it. Yeah, so we're studying, this comes in certain lengths, and we're trying to make sure that we use sizes that will have the least amount of waste, and also relate the fasteners that attach it to the framing in the most efficient way. So I think they probably are gonna end up running vertically, but we're not quite to that level.
Well, I was thinking about the potential for them getting very dirty if they're horizontal. I'm also, what about the yellowing of that over time? How long will that remain?
Yeah, that's a good
looking
question.
good?
We've researched that. This is a UV protected product, so usually when you see yellowing polycarbonate, it's because it's not UV treated or protected, and it yellows, within a few years. This, many years. I can't say exactly how many. Part of our discussion in using this material is that it is an exposed fastener system, so that if 10, 15, 20 years from now it is starting to yellow, it's a pretty straightforward process to back those fasteners out and replace the panels. Or at that point, the owners may decide that they would like to use a different material.
Mhm. And what about breakage possibilities?
Well,
Strength of the material?
yeah, that's, our structural engineer is helping with that, and the number of fasteners will help, because we want to make sure wind isn't going to make it flap or pull it off.
Or people falling down the stairs going
That's right.
straight through it?
Well, it's actually going to have a layer on the outside of the framing and a layer on the inside, so there's sort of that double, and it'll comply with the life safety code requirements just as a guardrail would. 200-pound impact load or 50 pounds per linear foot anywhere along it, so it'll have to be engineered to. But it's got these cells in it, which actually, it's a twin wall system itself, which gives it a lot of strength, believe it or not, and then to use 2 layers of that, one out, one in, with the framing. And the framing, the spacing of the framing, you basically have to like squeeze through between the studs.
Oh, okay.
You'd have to really want to get out.
Thank you.
But John, it's a clear, it's clearer smoke. It's not milky. It's not the milky kind of
That's
polygal.
right. That's right.
Sorry, these are the windows shown in the diagrams. Those are going to be glass windows?
Probably glass, maybe Lexan. Not acrylic. They'll be clear, and they'll be safety. glazing of some kind.
The outer plane of the wall of the stair towers is roughly where the outer plane of the wall is now with siding? They're
That's
not
right.
moved in or out?
Yep. Yeah, the only this stair tower is this wall comes forward a few feet to get the extra run we need inside to meet the rise and run that's required by code. But it's actually just kind of, the framing hangs over the existing foundation by a little bit.
Should we just clarify, it's not conditioned space in those stairs?
Correct. Yeah, it's primarily for egress. We think that most folks will probably end up using the elevator.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had one more programmatic question. I was just looking at it's a little hard to see at this scale. When you enter on L2, but you're an upstairs resident, is there a locked out lobby? How do you, it's a common, it's a mixed use building, right? Is that the common address for all the tenants above?
Yeah, so the plan is that this would get shut down here and probably here
Got
after
it.
hours. So you could come into this space through this entrance and go up.
Thank you.
You wouldn't have access into the vendor area.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank
Yeah.
Do you have any site plans on there?
Oops, I've got them.
That's it. Next one, please. Yeah, that's one. So, good evening. My name is Brent Rakowski. I'm with Otter Creek Engineering. I'm the civil engineer for the project, helping develop this site. So, a couple things that we always start off with is building uses and what's happening inside the building in order to come up with water and sewer flows. And based upon the internal uses to that building, we come up with a design flow, average daily flow for both water and sewer. And then the next thing we do is we look at the sizing of the utilities, the existing utilities that serve that building. Currently, this building is actually served by a 2-inch line that comes off the main that's located along Mill Street. So a little difficult to see here on this plan, but there's actually a water main running down the street here, and then a larger service line that runs across to feed this building here. So the existing 2-inch line comes off here and runs down to serve this building, and then also continues on to feed 2 residences that are located along Mill Street. So as part of the work, what we've done is had some conversations with the Public Works Department in terms of cleaning this area up. There's actually an existing fire hydrant here that's located right next to the existing building. So the town asked, as part of the improvements that we're planning to do, is clean up this area, so getting rid of the smaller service line that feeds this building and also the 2 residences that are down Mill Street. And what we're doing is we'll be upsizing the line and running that line along Mill Street. And John, can you click to the next sheet there? Okay. So the existing hydrant that's there is gone, and we're running a new main with a dedicated valve here that can actually isolate the stone mill building along with the residences that are down on Mill Street. So a new 6-inch line, or I'm sorry, a new 8-inch line will be run down to a new hydrant location that's going to be set off from the buildings, giving the fire department better access to it. And then immediately after that, that line will be downsized to a 6-inch, which accommodates the sprinkler service inside the building. So that will serve both sprinkler and domestic off that 6-inch line. Now, fortunately for us, is that existing sewer service that comes out of the west side of the building and runs down to the town's sewer structure is adequately sized to accommodate the flows from the proposed uses. And then the two residences that were fed by the 2-inch line and that came off of this other line, that will actually tie back onto the new main that's running down the street, and a new dedicated curb stop will be there, so it'll allow the public works staff to actually shut that line off and isolate it. as opposed to pretty much what's currently in place, a number of different valves, and it's almost a guessing game to determine what valves to turn off to shut that line off. So that's really the gist of the water and sewer serving the building and the improvements that are being proposed. In terms of parking, again, that goes back to the zoning regs and the anticipated use inside the building. In terms of calculation, a number of the parking requirements are based on a square footage. So at least at this point, they're somewhat preliminary numbers, but we came up with a total parking count for the project to be 38 parking spaces. And as you'll see with the supplemental information that was provided you today, there are 18 spaces that are associated with parcel B, which is an earlier sketch that John had for the survey here. So this is parcel B, and there are currently 18 striped parking spaces there with one handicap spot in that lot. Again, with the proposed uses, we also did an estimation of traffic that'll be generated by the project. For those of you who know that Storm Cafe was previously there, the building was once occupied by Phelps Engineering, and there was a small retail space at that property. So in looking at what the existing uses were versus what's being proposed, the real differences are the residential component and what I classified as being like a retail market type operation, which is on the second floor. Okay. The incremental difference there is very conservatively estimated about 20 trips during a peak hour. Okay. That number was derived using the ITE, Institute for Transportation Engineers manual. And that manual is used to derive traffic trip counts for a number of different uses. We have done that, we meaning Otter Creek Engineering have done that for a number of different type projects. We found that those numbers tend to be overestimated because of really the sampling, where they take those samples from, and really the derivation of that manual. A lot of the uses are based on retail stores that are in downtown Burlington, as an example. So a much more intense type use than what one would expect to see here. And I guess that's it. I don't know if there's any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, regarding the water situation, the new water hookup for the two houses,
Yes,
you're just hooking them up to the 6-inch line.
That's
You're
correct.
not replacing those lines.
that's correct. We are not replacing that line.
All right. And then the other question I have right now is back to the second, or the 4th and 5th floor rooming boarding house. 5 rooms available for rental for short-term stays. What does that mean?
I will have to defer to the,
So there are 5 units similar to a hotel unit or an inn unit that we would rent on Airbnb or a similar platform.
So it could be daily or,
Mhm.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
I just have one question. Probably on one of my previous board sittings, we envisioned having some work done along the river, and we were gonna have access for canoes and all types of things. Maybe somebody can tell me whatever happened to that idea. You remember that, John? And I can't even remember who was the one that was gonna do it, so. But I thought it was a great idea at the time.
I have a question.
Hang on. Ann, go ahead.
Is there any cost to the Department of Public Works for the extension to the water supply?
well, so as I mentioned, as part of what we were doing here is really cleaning up the area. So there's existing water and sewer existing water service primarily that run in a cobweb of things that were built over the years. So what in fact we were doing in consultation with the Public Works is actually trying to extend and clean up that area by the extension of this portion of line that was is essentially a municipal main.
But is that something that the project is paying for, or the municipality?
My understanding is that is going to be a shared cost with the town.
And on the Airbnb or whatever short-term rental system this is, do you envisage having reserved parking for those units? Or will it be part of the free-for-all that 38 potential cars will?
I don't believe there's any plans to specifically designate parking for the overnight.
There's not. They would have access to the parking that's available for anybody using the building.
And the 18 parking spaces that are there now are all limited to 2 hours. Is that going to continue?
My understanding is that they have been signed in the past to the Storm Cafe, and that changed a couple of years ago when the 2-hour signs went in. I believe we could change those signs, but we haven't made a final decision yet as to what those signs will say.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board at this time? Any,
John Tenney had his hand up,
Well,
give me an answer to my question.
any information from the staff at this point? Or,
Just one question.
sure, go ahead.
So we've seen trip counts for the traffic. Do you have an opinion to share with us in terms of whether you think that's going to add congestion to the turn onto Weybridge or the turn off of Main Street? I mean, what's your opinion from a safety congestion?
Well, I think as I mentioned, I said it's conservative. So there were some of a portion of the counts were derived from peak flows taken from a weekend, and that was added to actually a weekday peak activity. So in the sense of those adding together, that's somewhat more conservative. The trips out onto Weybridge Street, I would say that, it's gonna incrementally increase it. Whether it's gonna cause congestion at that intersection, I don't believe that to be the case. I don't believe there's congestion there now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the addition during a peak hour, yeah, there may be some waiting, but I don't envision it being, not a couple minute wait to turn out. Obviously, that really depends on what's happening on Weybridge Street and the flow of traffic on Weybridge Street, whether or not they can pull out or not. We didn't study what's happening on Weybridge Street.
I have one more question.
Yep.
Has there been a residential component in this building in the past, do you know, or is this just a new? What sort of setup was it?
It was an apartment on the top where the short-term rental units are. That used to be an apartment.
Mhm.
Had a kitchen, a couple of bedrooms, and I believe it was Lance Phelps that lived there.
It's the same level as the fourth, and then the mezzanine top part, which is the residential.
Okay, at this time, I'll open it up to,
I have one follow-up question. So, John explained that it's a zero cutoff fixture that goes, the standard fixture, but you're also you're opening up these towers, which are sort of lanterns. I'm just thinking ahead to where discussion goes. Is there a way, and would you be willing to explore a way to limit the illuminance outside that wall if we asked you to? That's part of the permit.
Yeah, we've actually been looking at that. Code, fortunately, only requires a minimum of 1 foot candle at the walking surface inside.
Yeah.
So I think we can get what we need for safety with a nice low level of sort of warm illumination. We've also looked, at trying to be sensitive about maybe it is on a photo eye that comes on at dusk and then shuts off at a certain time later at night, only to come on if it's triggered by an occupancy sensor if someone's exiting in an emergency.
So you're thinking about it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that the board will think about it. Just
Yes.
wanted to make sure you're open to that.
okay, I'll open it up for public questions and comments.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yeah.
like to hear what Mr. Tenney has to say.
Okay, I'll call on Mr. Kenny first.
Just one brief thing on the river access. We know that there's been informal river access there near the pump station for all the years that we can both remember, and I'm sure that that will continue. Second item would be on the issue of the traffic. We all remember that we built a bridge successfully here, and one of the major goals, and successfully done, was to divert the traffic that headed through the downtown to the bridge. And so more than half of the traffic that used to travel through the downtown up to 2010 now goes across the bridge. So we do not have a congestion issue downtown. In fact, we could use more patrons downtown.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Paula Bornaccia. I live on Mill Street. I live, as you go up the hill, I live on the bluff. I look at the river, and it's right at this building.
You're the orange house?
No, not the orange one, the
Oh,
cape.
yeah.
The next one.
Yep.
And so I don't have any problem with the change in sound. It sounds lovely. I do have a concern about the traffic and Mill Street, the characterization of Mill Street. Mill Street is not only a car traffic, there's a tremendous amount of pedestrian traffic. And there's a lot of people who use it as a throughway. And the people who come out of the parking lot are usually not going all that fast because they're turning the corner. But the people who use it as a through traffic are moving. We asked the town if they would put up a speed limit, which they did. It's a white,
It's a yellow.
yellow 10-mile-an-hour, which everyone ignores completely. And the road is inadequate to handle both pedestrians and cars going at any speed, because as you crest the hill on a nice sunny afternoon, the sun is in your eyes and you're blind. I know, because I go up the hill, either walking or driving all the time. And I'm concerned about I'm concerned about the street anyway, but I'm also concerned about an increase in the traffic. And I would love if the town would somehow or other take a look at Mill Street and this issue. The second is, when the Storm Cafe was there was a very large, very unsightly trash can right by the
Big dumpster
the
thing.
big dumpster. And, you know, when people walk, everybody walks Mill Street. They want to go by the river, and it's very beautiful. It's a beautiful part of our town, and it is extremely unsightly. So now it's gone because the Storm Cafe is gone, which is a very nice thing. And I just don't know what the trash disposal situation is going to be for this building.
Would somebody like to address the trash disposal at this time?
Certainly, yeah. So the plan was to continue to keep the
I'll bet.
trash receptacles there.
We'd love to talk you out of it somehow, because also there
Sir,
was.
excuse me.
We've got to take it.
Excuse
Oh,
me.
I'm sorry.
Sir, if you would, you came in late, so in order for you to participate, I must give you the oath,
Oh,
okay?
thank you.
Do you affirm that the evidence and information you are giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, okay, now.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Sam Guarnacha, and I live in the same place that Paula does. And it is a beautiful place down there. And the river walk, we managed, working with the town, to have that sort of semi-protected anyway, as it's thought of now as a park. It's still the Happy Trail, I have to say, named for the obvious. Many people gather down there to get happy. But it is a very beautiful place. It would be really wonderful. I don't know a better way to say it, but just to say it, that it would really be a wonderful idea to find an alternative place so that entire river, and you're absolutely right, since we look at it all the time, Don, yes, there are a lot of kayakers, canoers, also the people practice their rescue techniques down there, and it's and a lot of people fish, so it would really be nice to find an alternative. I think the part, it could go off I mean, I have all kinds of ideas about where it could go. It wouldn't be that much further to get it into the parking lot up toward, the College Street, that part of the parking lot. And it would be much more inviting in general, as long as that grass was well cared for there. It has the potential to be a really beautiful park area that would complement the beautiful multi-use and so forth, which we're just ecstatic about. Along with the college also, sort of redoing the building that's on our other side, right on Weaver Street there. So, there's a whole neighborhood just is getting a gentrification of sorts, but also becoming much more attractive as a community resource. So anything that can be done to accentuate that attraction would be really wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh, and one last thing, the speed limit. Okay, I would like to lobby for, and we'll work with Chief Hanley on this too. He was the one kind enough to do the 10-mile-an-hour yellow speed limit sign, which does nothing, because for one thing, it's unenforceable. He said the lowest in Vermont speed limit sign that's white enforceable is 25. 25 miles an hour on the lane is criminal negligence. So I would like to lobby for a 15-mile-an-hour enforceable white sign at the bottom of the hill. It may not work any better than the yellow 10 one, but at least it would have a little bit of teeth in it. And maybe if a couple people got tickets going up that hill at 25, it might help. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Jen?
I guess we just comment that it's hard to know how successful this is going to be. And I think if you had to use 38 spots and 18 were in parcel B, then you could easily fill the Mill Street lot with the remaining number of vehicles. Also with regard to traffic, you don't know how much traffic this is going to be generating, or if a lot of people are going to be going up to Weybridge, or if most people are going to be coming back up to Main Street, which I agree with John would be way easier in terms of congestion. So since there's these unknowns, and even Brent can't guess what the actual traffic is going to be at this point, maybe you want to review this again for traffic and parking. Maybe you want to review those criteria again in 2 or 3 years to see where you're at, because you might find that you want to restrict traffic from going up Mill Street. Maybe you only want traffic coming down Mill Street or something like that. And I suggest that because I think we have a precedent for doing that with the farmers market. So I'm throwing that out there.
I thought Mill Street was one way.
From here,
Is it one way?
to Weybridge Street is the
You
only
can
way.
tell how much I go up it. Apologies.
It's one way.
I don't know, I just
Occasionally
feel like-
people forget.
Yeah, I just feel like that's sort of a forgotten about area now, and it's so great that it's going to be revitalized, but do we want to have the option in the decision to maybe go back and just look at it again and see if we can brainstorm any problems that come up? Problems that could be, they could be problems for you guys too. I'm just throwing that out there in case I don't join you in deliberation.
Okay, thank you.
David, could you refresh the image, or whoever? Oh, sorry, John. And then just for the context of this conversation, could John or Brett point to where the trash is now?
Oh.
I didn't notice it because you guys have moved to a construction dumpster.
Trash is right next to the pump house.
Oh, it's not that far.
Yeah, it's right next to the pump house. And it's a long ways from the restaurant people who walk out with a bag of trash to throw in there. That's a logistical
That's why I never
issue.
saw it. I parked closer than that when I could.
Yeah, it's out there, so.
Yeah, so David, right now, it's right there.
Is it an enclosure?
Not really.
No.
The pump house is there.
Yeah, the pump house is
Up
there.
against the pump house.
I think part of why it's there is just because it's easy to pull in and get them.
Maybe an enclosure would make it more attractive.
No.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, the challenge with this end is that's where the handicap parking is. So we just have to, wherever it is, we gotta make sure, a truck can get in there and empty it.
Well, I don't think I can ever remember in my lifetime that the parking lot that, the big parking lot they put in years ago was ever been full.
Right.
And I can't imagine,
I can wait till you're finished.
the town of Middlebury spent a lot of money to develop that parking lot so that we could bring business and parking to the community. So we really have to use it. And it's foolish if we don't.
Exactly what I was gonna say. I think a project like this that.
Could
that
you
will not only-
could you identify yourself?
Yes, my name is Amy Ryan.
Thanks.
I own a business here on Main Street, and I'm also involved in different organizations in Middlebury that are trying to sustain Middlebury through what's bound to be a tough construction period over the next couple of years. And I think a project like this that has the diversity of the use that they're proposing is not only going to be beneficial for our immediate community, but people from outside of Middlebury, and bringing any awareness to the fact that we have plenty of parking in Middlebury, it's just that people don't know where it is, I think is favorable. And if we fill that parking space, awesome. I hope it's filled every single day of the week.
And I do miss the Storm Cafe, by the way.
Yeah.
We do.
I have a question, for Nancy, when you had your retail store there, there were plenty of parking places then. I'm not sure, was the lot there then? Was it?
Yes, the lot was there, and we had plenty of parking, and the Storm Cafe was there.
Yes.
And Lance, Phelps Engineering was above us, and they lived on the top 2 floors where the 2 Airbnb, or the 5 Airbnb spaces are going to be. And before that, there was another retail space above ours before Phelps Engineering took it over. And I think what they did was, I think they did put in the time limit for the spaces. I think Lance did that. And then I think things changed. I don't know on that, so I don't even I shouldn't say.
Well, the
But-
time constraints that you're talking about on the Plan B parking area, is that what you're talking about? Just to the...
Just the ones along the river.
River,
but, I mean,
yeah, okay.
I was parked in the Mill Street parking lot, and I was about the only person that parked in the Mill Street parking lot. Just agreeing with what Amy had, yeah.
I have another question for the, is it possible still to ask a question
Sure.
of the owners? So, operational question. The reason the zoning boards are always nervous when you say the word Airbnb is not that we're in the pocket of big hotel. They're operational issues. So imagine that, could you just walk us through how somebody who is booked on whatever platform, one of these short-term rentals, do they deal with the staff at the workspace? Do they unlock with a passcode, or what is the actual operation for that?
They will likely get access to an app on their phone that would grant them access to the space.
To the perimeter and then to the room within?
The room that they're in.
So it's that lobby, that lockout lobby does not become sort of like a hotel lobby. It's
No.
it's an entrance.
It's an entrance.
Other questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
I move that we end the public hearing on this and continue to discuss in deliberative session after we've heard the next public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, can we take a break?
Sure. We'll have a 5-minute break.
If they may not get it all done tonight.
Okay.
What's that? second business application tonight is an application request by Ronald Holmes appealing the zoning administrator's zoning opinion letter dated February 15th, 2019. This appeal specifically addresses condition 4 of a DRB decision dated October 29th, 1999, in regards to MT Associate Village Depot, 16 Court Street, parcel 25014. Okay, I'm gonna go over the structure of this hearing a little bit. The zoning administrator will be allowed to present the information which supports her opinion to the DRB and question or cross-examine witnesses or evidence presented by the appellant, and vice versa. And also the DRB may cross-examine witnesses and evidence. Also, although the zoning administrator is slated to present her information first, the ultimate burden to establish adverse impact, it falls upon the appellant. The zoning administrator will outline and present history, providing timeline, findings regarding the appellant's complaint, and conclusions that resulted in the opinion letter. Then the appellant will present his case against the zoning administrator's action. Questions or additional witness testimony can be presented by the zoning administrator and the appellant. The DRB can ask questions. And then we will make a decision as to how we roll. So,
I have a question, if I just
Sure.
two, because sorry, apparently the letter I sent in my entry of appearance didn't show up in Mr. Wetmore's inbox. I can't explain that. I assume the other parties got it. Did the other parties get it? You didn't get it either. Well, I apologize. I wrote the letter, I signed it, I don't know what happened to it. But I'm James
sorry.
Dumont.
Okay, go ahead.
James Dumont from Bristol, and I represent Mr. Holmes. He has to work and can't be here tonight, so we have another witness to address, if there's any need to address further the facts after the zoning administrator is finished. She's here principally to discuss the photographs that are already in the zoning administrator's package.
okay.
And just a question for you. Is this an on-the-record proceeding?
It is.
Okay, good.
Mr. Duan,
Yes,
we know each other.
we do.
You do know that I used to own that property.
I used to go there when you owned it.
That's right. So, but I haven't been there since 1988. You think that I can sit here and fairly come to a decision, or would you rather have me recuse myself?
I have to leave that up to you. You're the
I
best
mean,
judge of that.
there may be some resource questions that someone can ask me from the audience.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, I will excuse myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
I mean,
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay,
So can I clarify what you just,
sure.
so you were saying that, that I should make my presentation first?
Yes.
And then the appellant will make a presentation?
Mhm.
And then I'll have an opportunity to call witnesses?
Mhm.
And then he'll have an opportunity to call witnesses?
Correct.
Okay.
The following is a DRB oath for applicants, interested persons, and those wishing to participate in this hearing. If you are interested in participating in this hearing, please take the oath now. If you do not take the oath, you will not be able to participate. Do you affirm that the evidence and information you are giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief? Please raise your hand.
I'm not testifying, I'm here as a lawyer.
Thank you.
Lawyers aren't allowed to testify.
At this time, I would ask the members of the board if any member has a conflict of interest regarding this application. Mr. Keeler has recused himself. Any others? At this time, does any member wish to disclose any ex parte conversations concerning this case? Okay. All right, Jen? I guess it's-
So the basic, so you have my letter in your packets with the pictures, so you basically understand the gist of this, but I'll just go through the timeline quick. So Mr. Holmes originally filed a zoning complaint on January 4th, and then followed up on the 11th and the 23rd and February 13th, with regard to snow being plowed and deposited on his property from the adjacent property owned by MT Associates, the Tennybrook Dunkin' Donuts station. I had several conversations with the manager for the Tennybrook, the general manager, the operations manager, Dan Dukeshire, who's here tonight, if you have any questions for him. You said that the...
Excuse me, since it's an on-the-record proceeding, according to the DRB's rules, you follow the rules of evidence that are generally followed in court. That's why I asked the question. So generally, if it's an on-the-record proceeding, you cannot admit hearsay. So I don't want to be rude and interrupt, but Middlebury has decided to go with on-the-record procedures, which means that if this were to be appealed, the judge doesn't hear the case all over again. The judge decides it based on the transcript of what's happened here, and that's one reason why hearsay isn't allowed.
Was there hearsay that I mentioned just now?
If you're about to say what somebody else told you, that's hearsay.
The only problem with that, Mr. Dumont, is that we don't have training in making judgments as to objections under the rules of evidence.
And I'm aware of that problem, and that's why in those communities that adopt on the record proceeding, they generally need counsel to assist them. Middlebury has chosen to go on the record but not have counsel present. I can't help you with that.
Just gonna look up the email, because how can it be hearsay if I'm reading an email?
It still is. You can testify about what you know from your own observation. That's not hearsay.
I can speak to what I know from my own observation?
Yes.
Okay. It's no problem. I'll just call him as a witness later, and then he can tell you what he said.
That's preferable.
Okay, thanks for keeping us in line. Okay, so, Mr. Holmes complained on the 4th, 11th, 23rd, and 13th. So, I did make contact with the owner of the property. I can call him later as a witness, and he can let you know what he said about the situation. I went out and took photos of the site, which you have in your packet. Thought it'd be good to have documentation of the existing conditions. But at the end of the day, I was forced to address this condition number 4 in the decision from 1999. And that condition says that the applicant shall manage stormwater runoff and snow removal so as not to damage the landscaping or adversely affect adjacent properties. So I guess I'll just talk through the findings that I put in my letter. According to the parcel maps and the surveys in the file, Mr. Holmes shares a driveway with the Tennybrook site. More specifically, there's a right-of-way across his site. I don't know if it's worth showing a survey. There's a right-of-way that goes across the Tennybrook site, and the deeds for both properties reference that right-of-way and say it's for common use. So Ron Holmes' tenants use that right-of-way to access their back parking lot at the apartment building next door. But then also, it's hard to tell from this plan, but it was my observation that traffic going through the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through was also utilizing that right-of-way. So it appeared to me from my observations on site that the snowplow driver employed by Tennybrook was clearing snow from the Tennybrook station and depositing it on Holmes' lawn, but also was clearing the shared right-of-way and depositing it on that lawn. So that's why I made the point in my letter that, according to the parcel maps, you share a driveway. The snow maintenance company provides a benefit to your parcel by clearing your driveway, and it turns at the same time that the Tennybrook lot is cleared. And we have the snowplow driver that's employed by Tenningbrook here tonight, so I'll take an opportunity to call him as a witness to verify my observations. So the snow stored on his lawn is from both his lot and the Tenningbrook lot. Mr. Holmes did report that he had paid $60 the previous year for topsoil repair. It's a reasonable cost for lawn maintenance, although I would say that that's not necessarily landscaping. Landscaping is probably shrubs and trees. But I didn't believe that that constituted an adverse effect. $60 seemed reasonable for repairing your lawn after a Vermont winter. My lawn also gets damaged by a snowplow driver, and I have to repair it. You know, it's just part of life. And I didn't think it constituted an adverse effect, especially since the cost of the repairs are likely outweighed by the benefits of having Tenningbrook helping maintain his driveway. So, you know, I'd like to read this because it talks about what the English Shire said.
Which paragraph?
It's the third finding in my letter. Is that hearsay?
Yes, if he's here, we should just hear from him.
All right, so put finding 3 on hold. We'll hear it directly from him, I guess. And then I do point out that there are limited options for storing the snow elsewhere on site. I could not find a site plan that showed designated snow storage areas. So it's not like I can say that they're in violation in the sense that they're storing the snow in an area that's different than what they promised. I've also gone through the minutes from those meetings, and I didn't see any promises that they were going to put the snow in another location. I did find a maintenance plan, and that maintenance plan is referenced in Ron's responses. He calls it something different. He calls it the police something. Police Department Comments Village Depot is what he calls it, but I think he's referring to the September 13th maintenance plan submitted for this station, and it says, with regard to snow plowing and sanding are provided by Mr. Kirk Fisk of Middlebury. Mr. Fisk is on a retainer and provides automatic service to us on snowy days. In the event of a heavy snow and excessive buildup, snow can be moved off-site, but it says can, it doesn't say will, you know, so I just think that's something that they could easily work out between themselves. So those are my findings. I guess if you have other questions for me, you'll have a chance to ask those at the end. I think now we let the appellant go.
I just have a question about the survey that's up on the screen.
Yeah.
Does everybody on the board have a paper copy of that? If you could just maybe just go to the screen and find out on the screen what you described earlier.
I can leave it up here if you want to.
Okay. I couldn't follow what you're saying, so you meant to me.
Sure. Here's the station building, and
Yeah.
here's Ron Holmes'
Yeah.
apartment building. And there's this shared easement area that comes through here. And it's referenced in both of these deeds as just common use.
So the blue line on the survey, what is the blue line?
I believe that blue line is showing the property line. I didn't draw the blue line, so I
okay.
can't be certain.
Okay, that was my question. There's a colored line on the one up there too.
And there's a survey that predates that one too. It's just this old survey. It shows the same thing.
So you think the property line is, on the survey, it says on the bottom left, 6x6 existing marble post?
Mm-hmm.
You think that's the property, where the corner?
Yeah, and then this is the Tenningbrook site from here over. So I don't know what that blue line is.
The lawyer in me says whenever a survey shows a 6x6 marble post, that's probably a property line.
You're right.
Courtesy of
Okay.
Jen, it may be helpful for the board if you would point it out on the screen where the property line is and where the shared, like, which side the easement's on.
Well, I don't know if I really want to speak to that.
Oh.
You know, the survey's there, you can interpret it as you want. Like, that was my interpretation.
I understand.
I'm not a surveyor, and I wasn't here when that survey was done. But the deed, having read the deed language, it definitely indicated that the right-of-way goes on the Tenningbrook site. So when Mr. Holmes is using that shared driveway, he's crossing Tenningbrook's property to access his own. That's my understanding.
I don't think we have any dispute with the facts that Ms. Murray just presented. We have a different interpretation of how the law applies to them, but we don't have any dispute with the facts she just presented about the snow being plowed from the Dunkin' Donuts site onto Mr. Holmes' property. But I guess I would point out that the property line is, speaks for itself on the survey, and although Ms. Murray said she believed that snow from Mr. Holmes' property was being plowed onto his property, the survey shows that the entire area from which the snow is being drawn is not his property. If you look at the 6x6 marble post and the line that goes west from that.
But it is his driveway.
I'm sorry?
But it is his driveway.
It's his own driveway. It's the driveway that they use because of the easement, I guess is what you mean.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So his driveway is actually on someone else's property that he's.
Right, I think that's the point, that the easement of access for Mr. Holmes' property is on the other parcel. He doesn't own that land. So I think we all agree on the facts. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jen, did you want to call your witnesses now, or?
So that's all you had to say?
Why don't you call your witnesses, and Ms. Palmer is here, and or why don't you put on your witnesses, then Ms. Palmer will testify.
Okay. So I think even if Jim doesn't want to read through them, I think I want to read through Ron's responses, because I think some of them are possibly erroneous, which I think is harmful in terms of trying to make a decision here.
That's up to you.
Okay.
Just so we're all on the same page legally, what my client said to you is not hearsay. What other people say to you is hearsay.
Right, that makes sense, because, all right, this is actually his appeal. So the first thing he says, in response to my finding number 1, is that the snow is entirely from Dunkin' Donuts from yard. That snow is plowed from the snow that is plowed from the right-of-way is plowed at the back of my property. He's never plowed snow easterly and toward Court Street. So I take this to mean that he feels that when his driveway is cleared, that when Ron Holmes' driveway is cleared, that Ron Holmes' own snowplow driver is clearing all that snow away, such that the snow being piled on his lawn is only Dunkin' Donuts property snow. And I don't believe that that's true. And so I'd like to call if he doesn't mind, I know it sounds so formal, I'd like to call the person who currently clears the snow at the Dunkin' Donuts station to just confirm for us what his plowing pattern is. Would you mind? This is Eric Friend.
Okay. Sure, come on up.
So my name is Eric Friend. I do the snow removal for Tenny Brook site. When we're there at 3:30 in the morning. When I push snow, I push everything we can off into the south or the northwest corner of the property where the dumpsters are. We try to put as much there as we can. And at that point, we kind of push all the snow and push in that corner. And then we go around the drive-through, and then that gets pushed. When I put through the drive-through, because it's one way, it gets pushed to the right-of-way, I guess you would say, part of the driveway. So I'll push it to the right-of-way part of the driveway. Then I'll do a pass through the drive-through, clean that up, and then I'll turn around and I push from Court Street up into either in the back, depending on how much snow is there, or I push it directly onto his lawn. So like I said, I push the snow, a lot of times I'll push it down to, whatever's around the corner, I'll push it what I can reach from my truck, and then I'll do the drive-through portion of it, clean up that area, and then we come back through and then I push the rest of the snow down through and put it on the front lawn. There's times I do come from Court Street and push it back onto the bank. And if there's no lots or no cars in his parking lot, we always make a point of clearing out his parking lot when we're there as well to push everything out of the way as much as we can. There's definitely not a whole lot of room there, especially with the drive-through. There's banks all the way around it. So we chase snow there a lot, pushing, trying to get it, all in the corners that we can, that's there.
Okay, so you move the snow through the driveway from west to east?
East.
East to west.
Oh, so here's when I come in, I'll start on Court Street, and I push everything. I'll just start pushing everything into that corner, the
Yeah,
northwest
okay.
corner. And then we go, after we get that all cleaned up, we get some of the pumps, we clean some of the pumps. Get some of that does get pushed on this lawn. Then we clean up like I said, the right-of-way road. And that's either depending on traffic or however it is, or the snow, how much snow, it either gets pushed up in the west, or it gets pushed towards the east and then onto his lawn.
Okay.
Because there's really not a whole lot of room when you push west up onto the bank where they can actually access their 4 parking spots or whatever they have there. So you really have to try to get everything you can towards the front of the building in that area, and it ends up on the front lawn.
Okay, is that tree line there, is that the property, the western property line?
Yep,
So when you're pushing the snow to the west,
yep.
in the right-of-way, right now, there's a parking space there.
Yeah, we push everything, not to his parking spot, we push it to the left or to the right of it. So we don't take any of his parking, I mean, we just push it up onto that bank as far as we can.
Okay, and does that snow always stay on, does that go over the westerly boundary?
That, I don't know exactly where the boundary, we're usually on top of the bank, we don't go into there's a parking lot on the back side, I don't know who owns that, but we never get snow pushed up to that point.
Okay.
When it gets to a certain point with snow there, I usually make a phone call or send an email, and it's time to pull some snow out.
Okay.
And then
Is
they usually give me the
is that
okay.
an often occurrence to remove snow from the site?
We probably average 2 times a year, 2 to 3 times, depending on the snow. We did do one snow removal, I think it was in January. They did contact me to do one, I think it was in late February, with my truck was down and stuff, we couldn't get there in time, and then the snow ended up melting before we could even get there, so. But for the most part, we're always, we always pull the snow out of there whenever, like I said, when it's tight for us to start maneuvering around, because we have fills we have to worry about, fills get covered up, so when there's just there's too much snow, we have to pull it out.
Okay. Other questions from the board?
I have a question. It's not entirely clear to me from what you said, what your usual practice is. It seems that you have said that the snow that is collected from the drive-through then gets pushed back towards the dumpsters.
No, would be on the northern side, from the pumps
Okay.
north. Everything there gets all pushed into the corner.
And the snow from the drive-through, where
There's
does that
usually
go?
minimal snow from the drive-through itself
Because
of
of
the
the
canopy.
covering, right.
So we just have, 15 feet before the canopy and just a little bit after the canopy.
And then, and where does that go?
So if I go through the drive-through, I'll push it right out to as far as I can, and I get turned around and I'll either push some on to this lawn, or depending on how much snow is there, I'll take it and I'll push it all the way back to the west, up onto the bank.
So does it go onto the lawn of Mr. Holmes only when there is lots and lots of snow?
Definitely when there's lots of snow, we have no choice but to put it there. I mean, there's just no place, there's no place to put snow. I mean, you have the sidewalk, and then you have the curb, so there's no place to put it there. We definitely don't want to block any sight of view for anyone leaving or entering the station. So realistically, we're stuck with pushing everything in the back as far as we can. And like I said, there is snow that does go onto the front lawn.
Mr. Holmes isn't here to answer questions. I don't understand his statement here when he says the snow plowed from the right-of-way is piled at the back of my property and is plowed there by Jeff Delphia.
I've I've actually met with him before, and I've talked to him myself, and then I've, explained to him, I plow your driveway, I try to keep up with you guys, I
So
do
this
all I can.
Mr. Delphia isn't...
I don't know, I've never seen it, no one else, I've never seen anyone plow there.
Has the snow ever been already ploughed from the right-of-way when you've arrived?
Never. And realistically, there's no way, majority of the time, you could get a plow truck in the back of there. The only time I can get a plow truck in the back of there is if the cars happen to be gone. But it's literally, if there's just one car in the corner, all I can do is just get my truck through with a plow, to try to get some of the back stuff pushed that I can out of the way in his parking spots.
Does any of the snow from anywhere on the two properties get pushed to the southwest corner beyond the parking spaces of Mr. Holmes' tenants?
No, not normally, because I can't. At that time in the morning, I can't ever get in there.
Okay.
So I guess, question is, you're there early in the morning, and if it continues to snow or whatever, do you make a return?
Oh, yeah, we're not there all day, so at that point, we become very limited on where our snow goes at that point, because we're fighting cars.
Yeah.
So we try to do the best passes that we can.
Yeah.
And probably in times like that, there is more snow that ends up on his lawn, on times like that. But it's something that I definitely, I keep in mind, my guys, myself, is, we try not, we put as little on this lawn as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Are the Dunkin' Donuts parking spaces impacted by the snow piles
Yes.
that you make?
Yes, they might lose on they definitely will lose from the first storm one spot, and then the next storm usually they'll lose two spots.
Mm-hmm.
And just in clarification of that, that's on the northwest
Yes.
side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a possibility that Jeff shows up sometime during the day and cleans it up? Or what? Yeah,
I've never personally,
Okay.
I know Jeff, I've never seen him in there myself,
Okay.
personally.
How long have you been plowing snow for Tennybrook in this location?
I'm gonna say for at least 5 to 6 years.
Have you received complaints from Mr. Holmes before?
I never have, no.
Have you changed the pattern of your snow plowing over those years?
I have not, no. And like I said, I have heard through the grapevine that he was upset with me, and I made a point of seeking him out one day and talking to him.
Is that
about
this year
Mr.
or in
Hall.
earlier
That was
years?
last year.
Uh-huh.
And then I talked to him, and and I told him, we always make a point of pulling snow off your lawn. We try to be as neighbor friendly as we can. But it's snow, and when you get that much snow, there's only so many places you can actually put that much snow in a confined spot.
Jen?
Have you ever received compensation from Mr. Holmes for clearing his driveway for
I
you?
never have, no.
What do you typically get for clearing a driveway like the size of Mr. Holmes' driveway?
Probably for something like that. I don't know if you could include the right of way as his driveway, but if I was to do the right of way to get in the spots, I would probably charge like $20, $25.
And you did it probably how many times last year?
Every time it snowed. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
it
half
was,
a dozen maybe.
Oh, well more than that.
It
Yeah.
was
More than that.
substantially more than that.
I get many phone calls from Mr. from him about how often we are there, because it's there's people in and out all the time, and we have a liability issue ourselves for slip and falls and stuff, so it's definitely behooves us to stay on top of that stuff. So.
Well, I have no more questions for this witness unless you do.
All right, Mr. Dumont, do you have any questions for him?
Mr. Friend?
Yes.
I think it might be helpful to everybody if you just went through the photographs that Ms. Murray took.
Yep.
I think you all have the photographs?
We do.
So if you could just discuss, what's photo number 1? What does that show you?
That's if this is who we're talking about, Mr.
Yes.
Holmes, this is his front lawn.
Right, and with the snow that's shown in photo number 1, tell me where that snow comes from.
That snow comes from this way, pushing down, comes from this part over.
Okay, so when you say this way in this part, can you...
This part from the pumps,
From the
pumps over. So I can't, from here, from right where that curb is to the end of the island of the pump, that gets pushed over this way. Everything else we push from the southernmost portion of the island, we push everything back north.
So looking at photo 1 together with photo 2.
Yeah.
Photo 2 is taken from near the pumps?
Yep, yep.
So when you're sitting in your truck, this is sort of
Yep.
the direction you're going in?
Yep, yep, that's south, yep.
Okay. So the snow we're looking at in photo 2 comes from where the
From this
photograph was
spot,
taken?
and comes also from the right of way down.
Also from the right of way?
Yep.
Okay. Photo number 3, same thing?
Yeah, yeah.
And if you could just describe what you see in photo number 4.
Photo number 4 is a drive-through, pointing to, looking west.
Is there anything that you've described in your earlier testimony shown in photo 4?
As far as, no, I mean,
So what you're describing as the right-of-way that you plow is
this and this. I plow both these.
the drive-through and the driveway
This
to the left?
And to the left, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Photo number 5, why don't you just describe what that is?
Photo number 5 is the northwest corner of the parking lot, where we typically stack as much snow as we
So
can.
I'll tell you, if you plowed snow directly onto the property right behind you, you'd be just plowing snow onto a lawyer's lawn.
Yeah.
Anybody ever warn you about that?
Nope,
Oh, well,
probably helps out.
Yeah.
I'm a client. Okay?
you want Peter Langrock's clients?
Yes.
Oh, well, now we get to the heart of this. Okay,
Well, no.
that's why you didn't put the snow there.
No, we still put snow there, actually. We had a lot
okay.
of snow on the bank there this year. We actually had to haul snow on this bank, because the snow amount this
Yeah.
year, I mean, there was just so much snow. I mean, there's just so many places you can put it.
Right, okay. And photo 6, that's not on this location? Okay, great, thank you.
So now we release him from his pain, right? And I
Sure.
come and I continue doing my,
Right, yes.
Okay.
sounds good. Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
So you've had a chance by now to read Ron's responses to these other comments. In particular, you know, I really wanted to let you know that I had been in contact with Dan Dukeshire, the general manager, and that he had been easy to work with and even offered a possible remedy. And so in lieu of giving you the hearsay about that, I'd like to call Dan Dukeshire and just let him kind of explain his point of view on the situation. You can leave these here.
That's okay. I'm the aforementioned Dan Dukeshire, so I'm here to answer any questions I can, or to explain a topic of our conversations.
If you would do that for us.
Well, I got the first call I got, I think, was in January timeframe, and Jennifer asked me if I knew anything about the snow pile on the back of the property, and I said I've never had any I've been with them. That was my 4th winter, and I said I've never had any conversations with anybody about the snow pile being a problem or where it's stacked or any. I just have never had any conversation, and I've never heard any feedback about us putting it where we shouldn't be putting it. I always run the assumption that, you know, we were plowing that common area. I didn't exactly know where our right-of-way was and where his was. But I said to Jennifer, if we're plowing snow that's not out of that right-of-way over onto his property, and it's obtrusive, I said, we'll work to bring it out. I said, we call all the time and have Eric come and remove snow when it's an inconvenience for anybody, whether it's for us or for him. I said, that's not a big deal as far as we're concerned. And the understanding that I had was that Mr. Holmes knew that we were doing this, had been doing it for a long, long time, long before I got involved. And so as the conversations went along, I mean, we actually went there. I took pictures. I got this survey out. And at that time, I didn't actually realize that we were plowing pretty much the whole driveway, his whole driveway. And I just was a little surprised that even though we maintain and plow this thing, that there would be this kind of conflict involved where we stack the snow. I think that's pretty much the subject of our conversations. Was there more that I haven't relayed here?
Do you want to ask questions before I ask mine, like
No,
like
go
we
ahead.
did last
Go
time?
ahead.
Okay. I'll ask you questions. Do you have any questions for Dan?
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you plow the area that has the easement for Mr. Holmes' use because that's used as an exit for vehicles that are not going through the drive-through but are exiting the parking lot?
I've never had that conversation, but I would assume so, yes. I would assume so. It's a mutual benefit, yeah. I mean, I think as a good neighbor, we should maintain it whether we're using it or not, frankly. I can't tell you how often a car bypasses the drive-through and goes around the canopy. I don't see it a lot in my experience, but I'm not there very much, really.
If that driveway, if the right-of-way driveway wasn't there at all, would any car that parked to go inside the building have to maneuver and come out the front?
That's pretty much what they do.
Or they do?
Yeah, I believe so.
Uh-huh.
I believe so.
Because the spaces are slanted, pointing
They're straight in, they're
northwest,
perpendicular, yeah.
southwest.
Yeah, and frankly, what happens most of the time is it's so tight back there that when the cars are in queue to get into the drive-through, you can't get around them. That's my belief.
Right, you can't.
Yeah. If you
I
use,
I walked there today. There's no room for another car.
I don't think there's. I've never seen it in the time I've been there.
Any other questions from the board at this time?
Yes. Why do you plow the right-of-way?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, it's been done long before I arrived. I mean, as I said, I came to work in October of 14, and it's just always been, it's been that way since I've been involved. It's never come up in the time I've been GM, and the snow's been where it was this winter everywhere since I've been around.
And has Mr. Holmes discussed it with you at all?
Never. Never.
Thank you.
Jen?
Those are my two questions. I wanted Dan to tell you what he had told me is that he hasn't gotten this complaint in the past. I don't remember getting this complaint in the past. It's surely snowed in previous winters since I've been here and since Dan's been there. This is a new thing. And I just, I guess I would ask that you uphold my opinion here, because I think it's important not to set a precedent of the zoning administrator getting involved and trying to arbitrate a private dispute between these two property owners. I think it was important for me to take a stand with this zoning opinion to say that unless this rises to the level of undue adverse effect, I don't feel that I have a role, and this is something you need to work out directly with a neighboring property owner. I've always had I've always had a feeling from speaking with Dan that he's willing to work on things and willing to ameliorate things. He doesn't want problems. He's a busy man. He's got a lot of stations. He doesn't want little petty issues. He just fixes them. So if Ron can just go and try to deal with this with him face to face, I think he'll figure it out. But I don't get paid like Jim does to be an arbitrator, somebody who brings two sides together. I'm a zoning administrator, and this is not an undue adverse impact, and I should not be involved in this.
Yes?
Can I make a comment?
Sure. What's
I have a
your
question
name?
for this gentleman before you go.
Yeah, my name is Teresa McDonough, and I actually own the property on the north side. And the reason I came in today.
This is not the procedure that you set up. It should be Dumont's turn to cross.
But this is about.
Hang on 1 second.
The snow removal.
It should be Dumont's turn to cross examine the witness.
All right.
And then we should take.
Ms. McDonough, I'll call you as a witness before we're done.
There we go.
Mr. Dumont.
Yes, you heard Mr. Friend testify that he plows the snow from in front of the store where the pumps are onto Mr. Holmes's lawn. You heard that?
Yeah, but my understanding was he plows a portion of it from one side and a portion of it to the other side.
But he did say, I think, on
Absolutely.
3 occasions that he takes the snow from in front of the store
Absolutely, yes.
and plows it onto Mr. Holmes's lawn.
Along with the rest of the snow that's in the right-of-way that
So-
services Mr. Holmes' property.
Are there other Dunkin' Donuts stores that you manage?
Yes,
And those other stores, do you plow snow from around your pumps and in front of your store onto a neighbor's property?
if we do, it would only be with the knowledge that the neighbor is aware of it. I mean, we wouldn't want to do it and upset a neighbor. I mean, we're in the retail business. I think the last thing we want to do is upset anyone in the community. And I'm doing this for 40 years. This is the first time I've had a situation like this in 40 years.
Looking at the pictures that Ms. Murray took, do you think these starting with picture photographs 1 and 2, are those pictures accurate?
I believe so, yes.
So the pile of snow shown in picture 1, it's taller than the minivan next to it, isn't it?
Well, if we had a big snowstorm, it certainly could be, yes.
And that mountain of snow is all on Mr. Holmes's lawn, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board at this point?
I have witnesses to call when they're done.
Okay. All right. Jen, do you have any other witnesses at this time? Okay. Mr. Dumont.
Sure. Sharon?
Yes. Thank you.
Sharon, you can use that wand if anybody's getting out of line here, particularly Mr. Keeler. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what your connection is to this property.
My name is Sharon Palmer, and I live in the downstairs front apartment on the driveway side. And I realize that there's not a lot of room, and I certainly don't want to argue with anybody. But I'm not only compassionate towards the snow being on Ron's property, it's right in front of my window. So when I'm sitting in my living room, I can look out and there is such a pile of snow I can't even see across the street. And it's an eyesore.
Looking at photograph 1, can you show everybody where your front windows are? If you could pick it up and just show it. Or maybe describe the photograph.
Right here.
So, photograph 1 here, with the blue minivan?
Yep.
Where's your apartment with in relation to the blue minivan?
Right here, those 2 downstairs windows.
The 2
right
closest
there.
windows?
Yep.
How much of this past winter did you see a small mountain of snow like Ms. Murray's photograph showed?
Well, I'm not there a lot because I house sit for people. So, but when I am there, it's an eyesore. I realize, there's a problem with room, and I don't have the solution, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And looking at photograph number 3, is that photograph accurate?
Oh, yeah.
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 And looking at now at the survey, let's see, we know that the survey has this marble post up near the front, and you can see the marble post is a little bit north of the north side of the building. If you take a straight line of the building, it just veers off a little bit to the north. How much of that snow pile is on Mr. Holmes' side of the property line?
All of it. All of it.
Anything else you want to tell the board?
No?
Thank you. They may have questions for you.
Oh, okay.
Jen, do you have any questions for the witness?
I got a few things really good to say, but I got to think of something. No, I don't really. Yeah. You didn't really answer Jim's question. I was dead curious to know that. How many times has that pile been that high? I think you're going to say once. I think it's been once this year. That was the really heavy snowstorm.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah, and it's only just melted down since then.
and the lawn looks terrible now. I mean, it's just, a real eyesore. I realize everybody else's does too, but this is just worse.
Why?
Because of all the snow there and all the plowing up onto the lawn and, the melting, and it's terrible. It looks awful right now.
I have one other question.
You go ahead.
I didn't have the presence of mind to walk behind your apartment building, but during a heavy snowfall like that, is there a place for a snow pile that size in the back? Or would that displace some of your parking?
If the cars weren't there, there would be.
Oh, but, there's gonna be cars there, right?
Yeah.
Because people live there all the
Yeah,
time.
and there's one guy that never moves his car, so.
Mhm. So it sounds like Ron would be in a pickle even if
Yeah, I
none
don't
of
know
it was
what,
gonna
I don't know
snow.
what the solution is.
Okay.
But the issue here is not what Ron does with his snow, it's whether Pennybrook puts its snow on his property. That's the zoning issue. Not here to address anything else.
Ms. Palmer, how long have you lived in that apartment?
A year and a half.
So you moved in autumn of
I've been
20?
2 winters.
Okay, so autumn 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions from the board at this point?
Yeah.
Gary?
Sharon, when do you house sit for people?
It varies. I've had a lot of house sitting throughout the summer, which is unusual. But my main time is throughout the winter months.
Okay. And how long do you house sit for someone?
Oh, one person was close to a month, and then I was home for a few days, and I went to Cornwall for the weekend, then I go back to Cornwall for 2 weeks, at the end of April. I was out in Shoreham before that for almost a month.
So the eyesore doesn't bother you most time?
Well, when I'm not there, it doesn't.
Well, you're not there most of the time,
Right.
apparently, in the wintertime.
When you're house sitting, do you ever come back?
Oh, yeah.
How often do you come back and visit your apartment when you're house sitting?
Come back to get clothes or, just reconnect with my space 3-4 times a week.
Sharon, do you know who plows the parking lot in the back of the building?
I have no idea. He usually ends up shoveling it, I think. I've never seen anybody else there plowing, other than Eric.
Okay.
You said he shovels it, you mean Ron?
Ron, yeah.
Other questions?
Philadelphia do. He's mentioned it.
I have
Okay.
no idea.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. McDonough, you wanted to
Yes, please.
contribute, so come on up.
So I would say that this testimony that we're about to hear has to relate to the Ron Holmes snow pile and not the snow pile.
Your legal
at
training
Tech
is
Red.
very, very.
You're teaching me.
I agree, so.
Well,
Okay.
But
she's, I understand.
First of all,
Yeah.
were you here for the oath?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And you raised your hand?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I get that.
What's your name, please?
My name is Teresa McDonough, and I own the property, 12 Court Street, which is on the opposite side of Teddybrook.
So one of those 2 places next door to the Tech Medic?
I own that whole building.
The whole building?
That whole
Okay,
building.
thank you.
Former Trudeau property.
Correct, and I've owned that property for 2 years. I get that this may seem like a trivial issue for the zoning board and Jen to have to deal with. However, when a zoning permit is written up and it specifically states that it is not to snow plowing should not affect adjacent properties, and when I have gone in several times, particularly last year, I don't have access to these two gentlemen because they're not there. I deal with Judy. And most of the time, I've been, well, yeah, well, okay, I'll talk to somebody.
What are your issues?
I have the same exact problem. However, it is actually adversely affecting my property, not just because of an eyesore, but because the whole snow plowing situation needs to be managed differently. I do want to be a good neighbor, but when the snow is pushed onto the corner, it comes over and it actually blocks my tenant's stairwell.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
And I get that is a separate issue. However, the snow removal process needs to be managed differently, and that is why I'm here.
Okay.
Whether Ron's issue may be trivial, it is the whole process that needs to be either removed off-site so that it's not adversely affecting the neighbor's property and damaging our fencing and our landscaping.
So-
I get that it's frustrating, but I just want you to know that it's not just Ron that's experiencing this.
So I need to interrupt
Okay,
with a fact to share right now. First of all, never think that we think your issues are trivial. That is completely untrue.
Well, you said
it's
they
not
were
trivial.
trivial.
I guarantee you will never find something that said I said it was trivial.
This is I think her word was, this is a owner and that this isn't your job to get involved.
I encouraged you to work it out as private property owners, but I don't want you to read that as me thinking that your issue is trivial.
I felt that you thought that.
Well, don't, because it's not true. And I'm telling you that in front of all these people. That it's not trivial to me. It's just that I might not be the right person to be involved in terms of mediating, and I've encouraged you to get your own attorney. The second point I want to make here is that Miss McDonough and her issue with snow on her property is different, substantially different from the Ron Holmes situation. Because excuse me, I'm speaking, give me a moment and then you'll have a moment.
Use that hammer.
I'll stand up, maybe that helps. Her situation is different from Ron Holmes' situation because I talked to Dan Dukeshire, and Dan Dukeshire has offered a remedy to her. So her complaint is being remedied actively. And her complaint is being remedied actively, and Ron Holmes is not getting a remedy right now. Instead, I've issued him an opinion letter saying that it's not an undue adverse impact, and so that's why he's following the appeal route. She doesn't have anything to appeal because I haven't issued an opinion on that because Dan has offered to remedy that situation. So you had two issues. You had the snow pile on your lawn, as I recall, and you had a piece of fence that's attached to Tennybrooks fence that fell down. And so he's offered to fix the fence
My tenant
and
fixed
move the
it.
pile if it's still there. And I asked you to let me know if that didn't get remedied accordingly. So I just think it's important to let them know that you're just taking a different route through zoning than Mr. Holmes is.
I don't think so.
Okay, do you have any evidence concerning the Ron Holmes situation?
I guess not directly relating to the snow pushed onto his property, other than the fact that, again, and I'm not trying to cause problems. I honestly am just letting you guys know that we have very little recourse as property owners adjacent to a big business when the management is not on site. So it often is difficult to get a hold of somebody, and then when you read a zoning permit that strictly states snow removal, we've come to the town to ask for direction when we're not getting any recourse. As she stated, I have, which I have not. It's frustrating. And to hire an attorney, I don't have that sort of money. I don't know if Ron does, but at the end of the day,
He certainly hopes so.
I hope so.
you know, and again, we do have to be neighbors, but at the same point, like, you guys do gotta understand how it is affecting the adjacent neighbors. Ron and I are not, yeah.
We all live here. We had a
Yeah,
lot of snow
of
this
course.
year. You ought to see my lawn.
Yeah, but
It's ripped to hell.
Yeah.
And it's probably gonna cost me $300 to
Yeah,
get it
of
fixed.
course.
I'm not sympathetic.
Do you have a shared access on
No,
your
I don't.
side?
No.
Any other questions from the board for this witness?
Thank you.
So, were there any other witnesses you wanted to call?
I'm about worn out. Are we done?
You're doing really well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's too bad Ron couldn't be here, but he can't. And so the context of who said what to who over the last winter, I can't.
Maybe this is the healthiest thing that can happen tonight. Neighbors talking, I love it, one way or the other.
I can't respond to the context of who said what to who over the past winter. And I'm not going to testify about what anything Mr. Holmes told me, so I just have to leave it. But it's not really your role anyway. Your role is to look at the zoning permit and see whether it's been complied with. And it seems to me that testimony is very clear that if you just look at the snow from in front of the building, it's plowed onto Mr. Holmes's lawn. And that doesn't seem consistent with the zoning permit.
Will you have to prove undue adverse effect?
And
Was that the right time to, I'm sorry if it wasn't.
when you have snow that's a small mountain of snow on your property, as shown in this photograph, even taller than the minivan, given the great concern that this town has in its zoning and in its plan to preserve the aesthetics of the community and every neighbor's sense of privacy, it's undue. Now, what's the context? What is it the remedy that Mr. Holmes is looking for? I read through the zoning ordinance again a couple times today to try and figure out what is it that you could actually do right now, because the ordinance contemplates a notice of violation and then the problem has to be cured. And if it's not cured, then there are fines. Well, there's no snow there now. So what's the point of issuing a notice of violation?
Right.
And the answer is, once there's a notice of violation, then next winter, if it happens again, there would be penalties. That's the purpose. And so that's all we're asking for, is a ruling that it's a violation to plow snow other than incidentally. Everybody makes mistakes when you're plowing your own driveway, can get on your neighbor's land. That's not what's at issue here. They deliberately plow the snow onto Mr. Holmes' lawn. We just need a ruling that that's a violation. And then next winter, if it happens again, there will be consequences. And the Dunkin' Donuts has from now until next winter to figure out what to do with their snow.
Mr. Dumont, does your client have evidence that he actually plows that right away? Or do you have any evidence?
I don't want to testify about what he told me, because I can't, because I'm not a witness, and it would be hearsay. So
Then we have to assume, do we not, that he doesn't plow it?
I think the evidence we have tonight is that, from Mr. Friend, is that he has seen no evidence that it was plowed.
Can I ask, Mr. Dumont, if you or your client communicated these concerns to the landowner prior to the zoning, prior to the zoning complaint?
I had conversations with Mr. Holmes about that, but I don't want to break the rules and tell you what he told me, because I'm not under oath and I'm not a witness.
Okay. So let me ask you directly, as his counsel, did you, well, so you haven't communicated, or you can't talk?
I was
You don't
just-
want to say?
Yeah, the rules are
You
lawyers.
understand
lawyers
what I'm
can't be-
getting at? You understand what I'm getting at? It was asked of it was asked of Mr. Friend, it was asked of Mr. Dukeshire, if anybody made an attempt to resolve this with management.
I understand where that's coming from, but I can tell you I've been doing zoning cases for about 30 years. And there is no requirement in the statute, there's no requirement in the ordinance, there's no case ever been decided by any court in Vermont that says if you have rights that have been violated under the zoning ordinance, you have to try and negotiate them with your neighbor before you ask for a notice of violation.
Mm-hmm.
People have a right to rely on the due process of law, which includes the zoning ruling, the permit that's issued.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Would your client be happy with the snow from the right-of-way being on his lawn? Since that's
He wouldn't be here if that were the issue, the only issue.
okay. So if Mr. Friend comes up with a different route for his snow and he clears the snow from the front of the pumps, pushes it through the drive-through to the back of that property, and then pushes all the snow from the right-of-way, which Mr. Holmes' tenants use, onto Mr. Holmes' front lawn, would that be fine?
I don't think he could argue that it's snow from the Dunkin' Donuts that's on his lawn in that case.
So Mr. Dukeshire and Mr. Friend just need to get together to come up with a different way of running the snowplow through there. And Mr. Holmes will actually, or maybe Tennybrook won't want to plough that right of way anymore.
That may well be.
Well, that would solve it too.
I agree.
So, okay, so would your client be opposed to plowing all of the snow on the right-of-way to the back portion where his tenants park and leaving it in a pile there on the right-of-way?
I think, as Ms. Palmer said, there isn't room for cars to park back there.
Well, that's not my question.
Right.
There wouldn't be if there was a snow pile there. That's why I'm asking, would your client be willing to have all the snow in the right-of-way plowed, all of it, to the back portion where, on the right-of-way, not on his land, but where they park? Now, some of the parking appears to be on the right-of-way. So would he be okay with that?
I think the parking is not within the right-of-way. I think the parking is all on Mr. Holmes' land. So
I think we need to pull it back from DRB trying to find a solution here,
So,
because it's not there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I agree. Trying to find a solution is
Yeah.
not what's on the table here, folks. I don't
I
think
was
as much as-
trying to determine what the difference between one lot of snow was versus another lot of snow. But I apologize if that seems to be producing a solution.
Well, let me suggest this, and it's in keeping with what Ms. Murray was saying a little while ago. Maybe since we're all here, or almost all here, we can make some progress. I'm going to suggest that you, to use maybe the wrong verb, table this, and not close the evidentiary hearing, and give Mr. Holmes a chance to work out which one of you just proposed, which is that Dunkin' Donuts come up with a different way to dispose of the snow from in front of the building, and see if they can just agree to that.
And if they can, then you'd be able to withdraw the application.
Yes.
Yep, that makes it clean on our end too.
I'd make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
When you're looking for a motion.
I mean, the testimony has been useful, particularly from Mr. Friend, who I now know exactly how, and where he plows this and where he plows that, so the solution seems apparent from that. So let's try and explore that, and then before you close the record, and we may be able to withdraw the appeal. If not, then we'll ask you for a
Can I
decision.
just say something here? I mean, I appreciate, I just want to make sure Mr. Friend doesn't realize he's not the villain here. He's just trying to do his job, and
No, we're not saying he's the villain.
He's caught in the middle of this.
He's
so
a
it
reliable
sounds-
source of information.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's the
So,
bologna in the sandwich.
Mr. Keeler's the villain, but we'll get into that later.
Procedurally, we would not close the hearing?
I don't think you can table the hearing,
No.
because you need to take from the table before it closes. You
just don't close the record is the correct way to put it. You continue it to a further date.
You could move it to another date.
Yes,
Yeah, let's do that.
that's the right language.
Yeah.
And if, I will notify you whether you need to, whether we've made any progress.
Okay, but we need if we're gonna recess, we need to,
We wouldn't recess, we just
Continue to.
continue to a date and time certain.
okay.
And I would suggest that we gotta give folks a couple months probably to deal with this. Does that?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so we need a date?
I had to shut my phone off because the dang thing can't bring it. Does somebody have a date a couple months out if that's the board's pleasure?
Do we want to do May, or do we want to go?
June.
Couple months, June, maybe June.
June would be better. I'm gonna be, oh, no. The first,
Is this
The second Monday is
So
the
there are
10th.
two parties to this, right? Is this acceptable to both parties? Is that,
10th and 17th.
Does that
I won't be
matter?
able to do it.
He's
The end
to be the
end of June.
there's one party?
Jen?
Jen was calling.
Two parties, who are the two parties you're thinking?
I'm just asking, there's Mr. Holmes and then,
June 24th?
we've been treating this like it's a,
He's asking whether you're happy to have this
continued as well, as
continued
opposed to
or
just
not.
make a ruling.
Yeah.
To June 24th.
Right, I don't think it matters about me. I think what continuing to a date certain does is give you an opportunity to accept new, de novo evidence, right? So like you're gonna get new information from Mr. Dumont that might actually make you make a different decision than.
Actually, I'm not contemplating new testimony, just informing you whether or not we need a decision. That's really.
Oh, right, inform you whether or not you're gonna withdraw
Yes.
the application.
Yes.
Right.
Whether you've got a solution or you
Yes.
don't.
It all works for me because this is my thing from the beginning. Again, I don't think that these matters are trivial. I think they're better solved by civil attorneys and personal, personal interaction than through zoning and the DRB. So this is great from my perspective.
Okay. So, the 24th of June?
I move that we continue this, we recess this?
No, you
Continue the
just
hearing
continue the hearing to the 24th of June.
to the 24th.
Second.
We need a time. 7 o'clock?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for bearing with me, Jim.
You did a great job.
They're getting there.
You did good.
Is this one yours?
No, that was yours. That came from your file. Oh, no, read that over. Dave Baker's file.
Is that,
Yeah, that could be
that was
yours.
compliments of Sheriff Keeler.
Oh, very nice.
Oh,
So
well, that
that's
takes.
yours now. Okay.
Josh had said your dad wasn't doing well, and we kind of wondered if that was going on. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to drag you out again. We'll be talking. No, I'm the senior district manager here, yeah, so.
See you later, sir.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you for such short notice.
Mr. Keeler?
Judge is sending the bailiff to get you.
We gotta go.
This is one time, Kathy, I'm relying on that.
We have a motion already for deliberative
I'm gonna rely on
session.
your video.
Now, we need a motion to enter it now.
I think so, yeah.
I could give you a.
Is there a motion to enter deliberative session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
For what purpose?
To discuss the college,
Okay, I thought that was already done.
Stone Mill.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had that Dave
Yes,
moved to
it was,
close and
but
go into deliberation.
Yes.
we want to get it moving.
We want to get it moving.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, because I think,
yeah, I moved to.
Yes, we did, but
We just have to get everybody out.
okay.
So if you guys have stuff to work out, you're welcome to use this meeting. Okay.
Sorry, guys, I didn't mean that.
Well, we were just,
No, that's fine. That's just,
where you going, Gary?
Probably to the bathroom.
Well, I guess
You
there,
really need to know.
I guess there wasn't any hurry then, was there?